Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about the curtain walls, and then we're going to place them for one of the levels in this project. So if you would agree, first we're going to go take a look at its CAD plan. So I'm going to go over here and open this architectural file for this level. We said we were going to work on the ground floor, and here it is. Okay, so this project that you see over here actually has a glass exterior for which we're going to be drawing curtain walls. So as you can see right here, these are actually some glass panels, and these are its mullions, which you might have already guessed that we're going to need to model them manually because we don't have such mullions in Revit by default. So first I'm going to show you all of the level around. We have some more curtain walls on this side, and also the bottom side is from glass without any mullions, so that means that we don't need partitions for this side. Over here we have some more curtain walls, and then these are the entrances, and then the side is also all glass. Now let me also show you the project's frame. This is what the frame of this project looks like, where you can see the mullions, which also happen to be vertical, and there aren't any horizontal mullions in here. But we do have some panel partitions for this level. For example, these right here are the solid panels, and then these are glass. We're going to also talk about the frame in a whole nother video, where we're going to observe the frame, and then we're going to make the changes that need to be made. But for now, we're just going to go draw the curtain walls to take the project a step further. I'm just going to show you the project's frame first, which as you can see, it's glass all around. Also, since it's all curtain walls around the project, we don't have any windows. Alright, so if you would agree, first we're going to go take a look at the curtain walls real quick, and then we're going to head to Revit and begin drawing. So if you take a look here, naturally we have a glass with a certain thickness, for which we could very easily just measure the distance. And then we're going to measure from here to here. It seems to be 5 centimeters. So our glass over here is 5 centimeters thick. Alright? And as for these mullions over here, we could just go into Revit and create a profile for them, and then we're going to add them to the curtain walls. So up to this point, not only do we need to make the glass, but we also need to make the mullions. What matters the most in curtain walls is the glass thickness, so we're going to need to also know that before we get to Revit. And the second thing is the mullion profile, and it's the second new thing that we need to model in Revit. There is also one more important thing that we need to check in curtain walls, which is knowing whether the placement of all of these mullions are based on a certain pattern, or if there needs to be a certain distance between them. For example, maybe the distance between these two mullions is different from the distance between these two. Because if the distances are random and not following a certain pattern, then that would make things a little hard and we would have to place them all manually. But if there is a certain pattern, and the distance between all of the mullions are the same, then we could very easily go into edit type of the curtain wall that we're going to be placing, then enter the value of the spacing between the mullions. Then we're going to go ahead and place the elements. So let's go check that out as well, and then we're going to go into Revit and begin. So you see, first I'm going to measure this part right here twice or 3 times. First I'll measure from here to here, which gives us 2. So the distance between these two mullions is 2 meters. Also, it makes no difference which side of the mullions you measure, the distance is still 2 meters. Now I'm going to measure another one to double check and see if there's a pattern or not. The same thing's going on here, and now I'm going to measure another distance. And it appears to be that this side of the frame has mullions that follow a certain pattern, and the distance between all of them is 2 meters. So when we get to Revit, we could very easily assign that distance for the mullions, and then draw the curtain wall. Now let's go take a look at this side over here. For example, once again, I'm going to measure from this mullion down to the second one, which gives us 4 meters. Then I'm going to measure from here to the next mullion, and again we're going to get 4 meters. So there's also another pattern for the mullions on this side. This one's also 4 meters. So we need 2 meters for the upper mullions and 4 meters for the ones on the left. Let's also check this side where we have 3 of them. First we're going to measure from here to here, and it's 4 meters. And then once again, we're going to measure from this mullion to this one. So this side is also 4. It's 4 meters on the left and right, and on the upper side it's 2. Also down here we don't have any partitions, so it's all glass. We don't need to place any mullions here. Now before we go into Revit and start drawing, I'm going to mention a point. You see, we've already talked about this and said that these plans that we have over here are just phase 1 plans. For example, the doors we have demonstrated here are phase 1 and don't have any details. The same thing goes for the curtain walls as well. For example, over here, we don't know if there are any details for this glass. Like, we don't know if it's double glazed, or even what details these mullions have. So we don't know any of those yet, and we can just figure them out by just taking a look at these plans. And now the question is, what happens in those cases? You see, when we make the one-phase plans two-phase in Revit, we usually also have a file which contains some details. That file includes details such as details of this glass, or even how these mullions are connected to these glasses, or even how the wet flooring needs to be connected to its wall, or let's say the details of the staircases. So basically we have a file that contains such details in phase 2. In fact, we will be given a CAD file, which is called details, and we're going to have to go back and forth between that file and our project. And we're going to be using those details to make a one-phase plan, two-phase in Revit. For example, in that detail sheet, we might also have the door details, which we're going to take from that file and use in phase 2. Or for example, if we want to have a closer look on the stairs, we would once again need to take a look at that detail sheet and find structural details of the staircase, the steps, etc., all from that file. And in fact, the plans that we deliver are two-phase plans. So now we've also been given a detail for this project. We were given a CAD file that contains all the details we need, which you can see it has several sheets. We have 15 sheets in this detail, and each one of those sheets contains a detail. Let's check out some of them, for example, the -3 parking area flooring details. Or if we also take a look here, we can see the movie theater flooring details. Now let's also take a look at the other sheets. For example, we also have this public restroom lavatories. This is how they appear in the view, and we can also see what they look like in section. Like here we can see the height or the elevation of the lavatory, and just basically know that for any project you will be given a bunch of details like this, and the phase 2 designer will give you the BIM modeler these details. Also, you're going to be using them constantly. Like this detail sheet should always be open, so that when you're drawing something, especially in the plan drawing, you would have to go back to this file and check the details, and then you're going to apply those details into Revit. Or for example, when you are modeling things like the furniture, or fixtures like the lavatory, you would need to know what the elevation of the lavatory from the FFL is. Then you're going to apply that value. Or for example, if you want to check the details of the toilet in the project, you can see that the toilet paper holder goes here, and it's at a certain elevation from the FFL. So you're going to have to use all of the details from these sheets, and we've also got some details for the curtain walls in this project, which I'm going to show you, and we're going to check them out real quick, and then we're going to go to Revit to begin drawing. So you see, this sheet we have over here contains the curtain wall details. You see, for example, these curtain walls have some railings behind them, and we have the details of those railings in this next sheet. So when we get to drawing the curtain wall railings, we're going to need to use this detail. Now, if you pay closer attention, you can find some details for the mullions as well, because like I said, every single thing has some details, and we have the mullions details in this sheet. Also, you see when I zoom in on here, we figure that this is a double glazed glass. You can also see here it says that these are laminated double glazed glasses, whereas in the architectural plans, which are phase 1, that wasn't even demonstrated. You don't usually find that amount of details in the primary plan. So you're going to have to take what you have over here in this phase 1 plan, and then match it with these details, and just basically create phase 2 plans. You see, for example here, you not only have the details for the mullions, but you also have them for the glasses, as well as these corner mullion details, and so on. They also have dimensions of their own which you could use. Now, the interesting thing we had about this project is that the details that we were given didn't quite match the actual plan. For example, let's take a look here. You see, if we measure a distance, let's check from here to here, then it'll give us 50 centimeters. Whereas if we go take a look at the detail sheet, let me open this file again. And if we take a look over here, you will see that it says this distance is 40 centimeters. Alright, so this right here is a contradiction in itself. As in this detail here we have for the mullion is different from what's been demonstrated in the phase 1 plan. Or for example, the thickness of this glass was 5 centimeters, but it's 4 centimeters here. Like if we also try to measure the distance, I'm just going to take them both and not separately. You can see here it says 0.38. Alright, but we're just going to round it to 4, but it's still 3.8 and it's still different from what we have in the phase 1 plan. So we had such issues with this project, and also your job isn't just to model the items. Like you don't just exclusively model the things and move on. You need to also always spot and report the contradictions that you see in your plans. Like how in this project we had some contradictions between the structural and the architectural. So in the first step, it's best that we check both of the files to make sure they are coordinated, or report the contradictions if there are any. Or for example, if we are using these details, we might need to report that the dimensions of this mullion are different from the demonstration in the plan. So now which one is prioritized? Which usually you need to prioritize the dimensions you have in the details, considering they are more accurate, and that also the drawings you have in the phase 1 plan aren't always very precise. But it was also interesting how in this project, the dimensions that were in phase 1 plan were actually the accurate ones, and we shouldn't have used the values that were given in the details. When we actually reported these contradictions, we were told that we would be given another detail sheet that we could actually use. Or for example, if you take a look here, you have the details of the corner curtain walls, where a different mullion is connected. You see, in the phase 1 plan, this mullion looks different. You can also see that it has a pointy head, but in the details it has two 90-degree angles. So these aren't some things that you could just overlook and just follow whichever one you feel like. You would have to report every little contradiction that you spot in the plans, and then do what your client requires. Or let's say that you were told to prioritize the values you have in the detail, in which case you would still have to report. You could just say that what you have over here in the detail sheet, in fact, differs from what's been demonstrated in the phase 1 plan, but we were required to follow what we have in the details. For example, for this corner mullion, we could have used the details that we have in the sheet. So you're going to need to even report that. And just generally, it is best that you move your projects along by jotting things down as you go, so that if you come across a problem, you could go back to what you've written or to the comment that you've sent and justify why you did what you did. That way you could justify why you didn't just go ahead and use what you had in the phase 1 plan. So everything you do needs to be sorted with your client first. Now, in this project we have over here, it has actually been done and delivered. But another problem that we had with the curtain walls was that we were told to prioritize what we have in this phase 1 plan, and then they sent us a whole nother detail sheet, according to which we continued our modeling. For example, even for this corner mullion, we were told to model this shape and not the one we have in the details. This one also has differing dimensions. So then they sent us a whole nother file, and said that for the details of the mullions we needed to use these, which actually match what is demonstrated over in the phase 1 plan. So we just went ahead and used the second details. So that's why I suggest that you stay connected to your client and report the contradictions, like how here they told us to use this shape, and then completely overlook what has been drawn in the details. Also, even in these new details that we were sent, we noticed that the glass thickness has also changed. For example, you can see that we have a glass over here, and then there's another glass down here. Now, if I measure a distance, then we will see that the glass is 6 millimeters thick. Okay, so thickness 6 millimeters. And as for the thickness of that second glass, we get 8 millimeters. Whereas the glass thickness we had over here in these details, let's try to measure it. You can see that it's 8 millimeters here. And the second one is 1 whole centimeter. Alright, so we have an 8mm and a 1cm glass. Added together we get 38. But in this other detail we had an 8mm and a 6mm, and then this right here is the space between the glasses, which makes it 2 centimeters overall. Now if you add them all together, then you would get 3 centimeters and 4 millimeters. Like if I measure from here to here, then we would get 34 millimeters. So if we consider the overall thickness of the glass, then it would be this value, which once again is different from the detail. It even differs from what has been demonstrated in the Phase 1 plan. So after going back and forth a few times and reporting some issues, they're going to be resolved. So there are a few things that we're going to need to do. One is that we're going to need to create these profiles for the mullions. Then we're going to set up the glasses. And then we're going to enter the spacing that needs to be between each mullion. And then we would begin drawing our curtain walls. So we're going to begin with the drawing process in the next video.